involve people who live and work in a city in decisions made by that city. And too often, those decision-making processes take on varying forms of chaos in which unruly mobs make a lot of noise at raucous town hall meetings and make for a very unpleasant scene that leaves everyone bruised and battered. And this presentation is designed to show you a variety of ways for a city to change that paradigm, to move from chaos to collaboration. One of the most important ways to think about this challenge is to think in terms of a set of core values for involving the public. And so the International Association for Public Participation, or IEP2, has developed a set of core values for enabling the public to participate in decisions that are being made by a city. I will be sending these slides electronically to the organizers, so the fact that you can't see them very clearly shouldn't be an issue. But as you'll see, as you review these core values, public participation in decision-making is based on the belief that those who are affected by a decision have a right to be involved in the decision-making process, and that their contribution will in some way influence the decision, that it will help create more sustainable decisions that can survive political muster, and that the participants will have the information they need to participate in a meaningful way, and they'll understand how their input affected a particular decision. Various decisions fall along various parts of a spectrum, and you're seeing a public participation spectrum up on the screen behind me that goes from the inform level, where we're simply providing the public with information about a decision that's already going to be made, for instance in a crisis, to consult, where we're obtaining the public's feedback on various alternatives to consider in making a decision, to involve, to collaborate, to finally empower. At the empower level, we're essentially placing final decision-making in the hands of the public. So no two decision-making processes would be exactly the same, and it would be incumbent upon a city to determine just how much influence the public might have over a particular decision. I should add that perhaps as a decision is going to have greater impact on the public, it might make sense to give the public more impact over that decision. So for instance, if a particular city's decision will require a meaningful tax increase in order to execute it, it might make more sense to involve the public to a greater extent in that decision-making process. So what we're talking about here is a set of strategies that I might call outside-the-box public engagement. Typically, cities have fallen back on the tried-and-true public hearing or public comment formats, where they simply place a microphone and a podium in an auditorium and provide a sign-up sheet, and each person has their handful of minutes at the microphone. That form of engagement is very limiting. There are very few people who have the self-confidence to participate in that way, to expose themselves in that way, to devote hours to waiting around for their few minutes to speak. And so the thought behind these strategies is to empower and engage the unengaged and disempowered, to help foster a culture of civility and consensus, and to help develop a citywide capacity for connecting community to government. So one way to go about this is to rethink the way that public meetings occur. You may be able to see in the background a picture of a public meeting in which people have been divided into small groups, and in this particular case they were asked to consider how they might spend limited public dollars for major infrastructure projects. They were given a game board and some pretend currency, and they were asked as a group to come to consensus as to how they would spend that limited amount of currency. They were aided by a facilitator who helped walk them through the activity and kept the group on task and kept the conversation civil. It made for sort of a game-like atmosphere, but the products of the games were used in direct relationship to what was eventually proposed to voters for new capital spending, and the voters by and large approved those projects. So it's more than just entertaining activities for the public. It's meant to be a way to more directly develop plans and programs that will meet the needs of the public. There's also the notion of taking a meeting that might have otherwise been held in a public domain and packaging it into a box, creating the materials for someone to host the meeting at their community center, at their neighborhood meeting, at their business association, at their workplace, even at their dinner table, so that people can participate in more comfortable ways at more convenient times. Then there's the notion of engaging the unengaged, in which staff people or volunteers are positioned at places where the population tends to gather, for instance, at a university campus, as in this photo, and solicit input from the citizenry as they pass by via electronic tablet computer or poster board, with the idea that some people don't have much time to spare, but if you give them the opportunity, they will likely share their input, even if it's for a very limited period of time. Then there's the notion of training community facilitators to host dialogue across a particular city. So in Austin, we've developed something called Conversation Corps, CORPS, in which we've trained volunteers to become facilitators. We've given them topic guides, and we've dispatched them to locations of their choosing, cafes, schools, houses of worship, and so on, in an effort to make it that much easier for the public to participate, that much more comfortable because they're in smaller group settings at places they're accustomed to going to, and that much more meaningful because they really have an opportunity to interact with their fellow citizens and learn things that they may not have learned before. And then, of course, there's the use of technology, and one of the ways in which we've deployed technology is a custom-designed web forum called speakupaustin.org. And in it, you will be given the opportunity to participate in moderated discussions on various topics. The discussion you're seeing behind me has to do with the balance between leaving public parks open to the general public for recreational use and hosting special events like music festivals at the parks. Through threaded discussions moderated by a neutral facilitator, members of the public who could not otherwise participate by coming to meetings can still participate online. And up to date, this forum has registered some 6,000 users, and many thousand more have participated without creating an account, thereby giving us a large sample of the population from which to draw public opinion. And finally, for today, I want to discuss the leveraging of television and online technology, web streaming technology, like the one that I'm using today, for the purposes of involvement of the public. Most often when you host public meetings, you're barely going to get several dozen, maybe a few hundred people to participate in most cities around the world. It's just difficult for people to make the time and effort to travel to a particular place in order to participate. The use of live television and online web streaming of a meeting, coupled with telephone, text messaging, and Twitter technology, can take a meeting that otherwise would appeal to a few dozen people and instead make it available to several thousand people. So in our TV town hall, the public is given two toll-free numbers, one in English and one in a second language like Spanish. They're given the chance to call in or text in using a designated short code, or tweet in using a designated hashtag like hashtag Austin, Texas, GOV. And in that way, they can participate and share their input from the comfort of their own home, and thereby give us a much broader array of opinions than we would be able to get if we simply hosted the meeting with people face to face. So the idea here is that we are trying to enable those affected by decisions to affect those decisions. And we are acknowledging the fact that in some of our larger cities, it's simply not possible to expect everyone interested in a topic to gather in one single place. But instead, we should consider how to make engagement opportunities available to people with a minimum of inconvenience, a maximum of comfort, and a maximum of benefit, both to them and to the cities who are seeking the input of the public in order to ensure their policies best meet the needs of their public. I want to thank you again for enabling me to participate in this way. I have put my contact information up on that slide, but it's very difficult to read, so I'll tell you my email address, larry.schooler@austintexas.gov. That's larry.schooler@austintexas.gov. And my phone number is 512-387-4876. Again, 512-387-4876, and that's country code 1 in the United States. I would love to talk with you further about ways for cities to more effectively involve the public in their decision-making process. 谢谢。